channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. For today's video, I am going to be talking all about ADA accommodations in college, and hopefully I will touch on everything that you guys want to know about it. If you guys have any questions about ADA accommodations in college, leave them in the comments down below and I will do my best to answer them. Also, I have a ton of other college related videos here on my channel that I will link it down below. So I just got done editing this video and I did want to pop in here and say a few things. The first is that this is just a very general and basic video. I'm basically just going to go through a bunch of bullet points and I will do my best to timestamp them down below for you guys. And this video is kind of all over the place. If you guys would like a more complex and detailed video all about accommodations, definitely let me know in the comments. And without further ado, let's get started. So if you are someone like me who had a 504 plan or an IEP in high school, you will likely be able to carry it over with you through college as well. But something to keep in mind is that you may not receive all of the accommodations you had in high school when you are in college. In terms of when to start the entire process, I personally started the accommodation process during my senior year of high school after receiving my acceptance letter and making the final decision on where I would go to school. I highly recommend starting it sooner rather than later because there are a ton of students who have ADA accommodations, and to actually get started with the process, I would either talk to your high school guidance counselors and see if they can help you, or you can do what I did, which was contact the ADA department of the college you will be attending directly to see what paperwork you will need to fill out in order to receive accommodations once classes start. I know that for me personally, I had a ton of paperwork that I had to mail in. I also had to meet with the ADA office prior to school even starting, and a lot of the documentation that I had to send in came from both my high school as well as my neurologist and doctor. The accommodations process can be pretty lengthy, but once your accommodations request is approved by the ADA department, make sure you are on the lookout for emails from them in regards to what you need to do in order to notify your professors to let them know that you do in fact have accommodations. Some ADA offices at school will do this entire process for you. I, however, went to a small community college where I was pretty much in charge of it all. In terms of letting teachers know, for my in-person classes, I was required to go to a central services office and pick up what my school called a disability packet, which just outlined all of my accommodations and a little bit about me, and I was the one responsible for giving it to each of my professors. However, for online classes it was a little different, and the ADA department went ahead and emailed my professors for me and just CC'd me on the email with the same exact paperwork I would have given them if I had been taking an in-person class. I highly recommend giving all your accommodations paperwork to your professor on the first day of classes, or even try to meet with them before classes even start to give it to them. And I highly recommend talking to your professor and seeing if there is a time, whether it is before class or after class, or even just by email, so you can meet with them and go over all of your accommodations, because going over your accommodations with your professor helps them understand what your expectations are in terms of your accommodations. And something to keep in mind is that some professors are not as familiar as others when it comes to accommodations. And one of the questions that I had for the ADA office when I was going through the application process for my accommodations is what to do if your professor is not abiding by your accommodations. And if for some reason you do have a professor who is not abiding by your accommodations, it is up to you to advocate for yourself and just let them know that they are legally responsible for abiding by your accommodations. If you have this sort of issue, definitely reach out to the ADA department and send them an email and let them know a little bit more about the situation, and the ADA office may even decide to get involved, or at least follow up down the road to ensure you are receiving your accommodations. As frustrating as it can be when a professor doesn't abide by your accommodations, you need to keep in mind what I mentioned a few minutes ago, which is that not all professors are as familiar as others when it comes to accommodations. There are some professors who rarely have students with accommodations, whereas there could be other professors that have a huge load of students with accommodations. And sometimes the professors who are unfamiliar with accommodations just need to be educated a little bit more on them. And something else that I really want to heavily stress is to not be embarrassed if you are a student who requires accommodations in college. Having accommodations doesn't mean you aren't smart or anything like that. Having accommodations is because you need them. Legally, this is all confidential, so no other students or anyone else has to know you are receiving accommodations. It is legally only only between you, your professors, and the ADA department. Just like legally, your professors should not ever be bringing up the fact that you do have accommodations in front of any student or other faculty member. If this does happen, I highly recommend advocating for yourself and letting the professor know that legally they should not be saying anything about it. And again, I would definitely recommend reaching out to the ADA office and letting them know. Now I want to get into a little bit more about me and let you guys know what my accommodations were throughout college. So first off, a little bit about me. I have a health science degree as well as a degree in medical assisting, and I was in college for a total of 6 years, obtaining both of those degrees. And throughout those 6 years, I had accommodations entirely. Sometimes accommodations were added and sometimes accommodations were subtracted from the situation. It basically depended on what classes I was taking, and I became really close with the head of the disability department at my school, and I was always really comfortable talking to her and telling her when there were issues with my accommodations, whether it was a professor not abiding by them or anything like that. And she's the one who really taught me that when it comes to accommodations, you need to be your biggest advocate, but that in situations, if I had already advocated for myself and the professor still wasn't abiding by anything or was doing something wrong, she would definitely get involved. So in college, I was approved for 5 main accommodations, and the first one was the ability for me to use either my laptop or my iPad to record notes during lectures in different classes, regardless of the electronics policy in that professor's class. Another one of my accommodations was having access to another student's notes and would have the ability for them to be photocopied. Now, I personally just straight up found someone in class who I clicked with and who was willing to share their notes with me. However, if you really want all of this to be confidential, all you have to do is ask the professor if there's anyone in class willing to take notes for another student, and then just have that student give the professor the notes to copy and then distribute them to you at another time. No one has to know you are the student who needs a note taker. And one of my most useful accommodations was that I had the ability to record a lecture using either my iPad or an actual recorder. However, it was only to be used for my own personal use. It was not something I was able to share with anyone else. And then my last 2 accommodations were both related to exams. The first one being I had access to exams in a quiet, distraction-free zone. I know that my college's campus had an actual testing center for people with accommodations that they could walk into and take their test. This is something you definitely want to check with your professor about beforehand to ensure that they know they need to drop your test off at the testing center for you to take it. I mainly just use this for big exams. However, I did have the opportunity to do simple quizzes and pop quizzes as well. And then the last one is that on quizzes and exams, I got time and a half. And time and a half is just like it sounds. You get the full time of the exam like everyone else does, and then you get half of the time of the exam all added together. So for example, if I had an exam that was 60 minutes and I was receiving time and a half on it, it would become 90 minutes because half of 60 is 30 and 60 plus 30 is 90. And those were my accommodations. So those are a few key points on ADA accommodations in college. If you guys have any questions, leave them down below and I will do my best to answer them. While you guys are down there, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I upload new content regularly and would love it if you'd become part of our little family. Also, be sure to hit the bell so that you are in fact notified every time I do upload a new video. I hope you guys like this video and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys!